marching on the shore, relentless in the war. The legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest. The cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty. Calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain. The face of evil smirking, with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your data and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Conditions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenances falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners. Go. Run, 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 make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we can't forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we can't forget it. getting. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come fi get it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come fi get it. Run for the hills, let the will lead the mind. For living is the thrill with the doubt left behind. Amidst all the wicked, there is beauty to behold. Be fearless and intrepid from the depths of our soul. The hands of the steady cleave the rose from the bone. The sweat of the weary brings us closer to the dawn. The motion of the wheel brings the light to the mind. Change be aligned, it's divine. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling on your daughters and your sons, they come we get it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling on your daughters and your sons, they come we get it. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. Be a professional about it. I'm sure you'll go pro in no time. Well, this is professional grade stuff. Now, these are all sentences, these are all statements that we are familiar with. We are familiar with the spirit of them. And these sentences are about tools, skills, and desired outcomes. And they put professionalism right at the center of desired outcomes when it comes to tools and skills and so on and so forth. Now, what we're going to talk about today is, what is this pro thing? What is this pro versus amateur? What does it mean to be a professional? I'm going to be a professional about it. I'm going to take it in the chin. It has almost a beyond just mere utilitarian value, to have some kind of value perhaps that has to do with morals and virtues and so on and so forth. A mindset, a spiritual, a stoicism, for example, a hovering above, taking a cold professional approach to things. We're going to discuss all these today, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome to my channel. My name is Ike Ogiamin, and over here we talk about being better and doing better with a strong emphasis on doing. What are we doing today? Today we are going pro. We are becoming professional. Let me give a quick shout out to the super chats over here. Thank you very much. They're already coming, rushing in. That is a beautiful thing. Over here we have Six Sigma. Salute Ike, just stopping by to show support to the productive channel. Well, thank you very much. Let me go ahead, and I believe my friend Ayo Adeojo gave the first Canadian dollars in the house. $5.45, and that's Canadian dollars, ladies and gentlemen. Says salute. Thank you to you. And who else we got here? Wow, it's raining. It's raining. We got Doug in the house. Doug in the house. Best of all the moderators out here. Yes. Best of all the moderators. I didn't say I think you won the award. You won the award, right, Doug? So it's not my call. Don't come for me. Don't come for me. Yes. Sincere Cracking Up says, I'm professional, but would like to know even more about dropping link during stream. Indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right back into this. So, I was mentioning earlier that we have certain phrases that put professionalism, let's call it, okay, puts professionalism in the positive light, puts professionalism in
the mode of ideal when it comes to skills, tools, desired outcomes, right? Be a pro, so on and so forth, right? So if the professional mode, okay, it's a favorable mode, when it comes to skills and outcomes. But one thinks about our whole life as filled with desired outcomes, whether it be for our family, for our children's education, for relationships, for our health, for our physical and mental, spiritual health, our diet, whatever it may be, we have outcomes and their skills. It takes skill to walk, people have to relearn these skills when they go through certain accidents and so on and so forth. In other words, life is filled with skills and desired outcomes. So how come, let me ask this question to you. Our honored guest today is Aitwa Ogamin. He's been here a few times. We've talked about a range of topics, the president of American Heritage University, amongst other things, new game productions, and all that kind of good stuff. But let me ask you this. Why do we have what we call a professional life as opposed to just being professionals at life? What goes on in your head when I create that dichotomy?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me. It's nice to be back on the channel, and I think that part of it, you could blame it on cultural upbringing. You could blame it on how certain parents, expose this idea of being, having the proper etiquette around certain people. And in the absence of those people, those etiquettes go out the window. And I think what we need to learn to do is bridge that the etiquette can continue. And so when you think of professional, when I think of myself, I'm a professional in many different things. As a professional, we focus on mastery. We focus on having strategic ways that we approach our profession. So there's a certain amount of hours or time one can say that we put into our craft and what we do. So when you think of your professional life, there's a certain structure. There are permit me to use an example. And one of the things I do professionally is mastering music. The client gives me the record. I immediately start, or maybe if I'm mixing a record, I put it in my system and I start labeling the stuff and I start arranging things. And then I follow this pattern and then I start looking for EQ mistakes and then get all these things done. And once it's all valid, I run it to another system and then run it through the master chain and get all the levels balanced for Spotify balance, iTunes balance, and all these different balances. And then the work is done. And what people don't realize, you can follow that very similar structure in your day-to-day life. So I'm sure we can expand a little bit more on that. But for now, I think it's really having a set of rules and tools that you use to address a problem and with hopes to come in with the best possible outcome.
Rules and tools, addressing a problem, hopes for possible, best outcome. Something you mentioned there, and you talked about the etiquette, that is etiquette being a system of simple rules. Typically, they don't have a lot of a logical explanation behind them.
Right.
In other words, it's not ethics. Don't do this because you can kind of see why it's a bad thing to do. It's put the fork on the left and or whatever it may be. Start from the inside out when it comes to the different kinds of cutlery and all those other kinds of rules. There's no kind of because, that kind of a thing. So if you teach people to be professional or to act in a certain way, I think this is an example. I think I read this on your channel once when you said, how come, you bring out the best china or in your best behavior and your house is in its best or closest approximation to order and cleanliness when you have these visitors coming over, let's say, and then everything goes to chaos again outside. So it's that I'm glad that you honed in upon that as the kind of another representation of this same dichotomy, whereby we're looking at one side of our lives as a place where you actually have the tools to get outcomes that you want.
Right.
And then in the rest of our lives, we completely forget.
We throw it out the window. Right.
We throw it out the window. Now, let me drill into this because let me play devil's advocate a little bit before we move on. Some people would say, right? Some skeptical people are just like, you know what? It's not that. It's not that they don't know. The only reason they have a professional attitude in any area of their life is because they have to.
You
see, if they don't go to work on time, they don't manage their time, they don't put in the required effort, minimum effort at least, or the most efficient effort to get the outcomes that they're looking for, you will be fired, you will lose money, status, so on and so forth. And that's the only reason why they're professionals in any aspect of their life. So it's not like, oh, if you just told them, oh, you can be a professional in everything in all of your life, you can look at it with in terms of high levels of skill and quality and so on and so forth. They're like, no, they actually want to run away from all kinds of responsibility and quality in terms of their skills and outcomes and run into the weekends to go do the things that they consider to be fun. What would you say to that particular pushback that says, you know what, you're wasting your time over here talking on YouTube about people who got it. Those who don't, it's not because they haven't been told, they're just lazy and don't bother them.
Well, let's look at it from this perspective. If you know, there's actually a video cast that I did where I talked about frequencies, operating at different frequencies and different subconscious levels of your mind and et cetera. So let's pretend that the basic minimum of what we would call a professional attitude or approach to what you do revolves around level A. Let's just call it level A. And then what you do in your professional life, the things that you have to do, they're on level B. So what if we can find a way for our level A to be the bare basics of level B? So for example, let's take the approach of exercising. That's a very common topic right now. I mean, I was reading the research. The world is put on pounds, right? Literally from being shut home and stuck home for months, and in some cases almost a whole year for some people. If you took a structured schedule to what you would consider, well, I don't have to anymore, then you would remain being in a professional, getting it done for the best possible outcome mindset. So it's really about looking at what you're considering fun and giving it a fun structure. Then it becomes always fun, even when you are being a professional, because when I'm doing my professional stuff, I'm still having fun, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Mr. Ayo again dropped $6.99 Canadian. He's making it rain with the Canadian dollars out here. Says, excited for this topic. Well, I'm excited that you're excited. I'm excited for the money. I'm excited for the support. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we have here Reynold Cherry. And you're dropping that sponsorship level dollars. Thank you very much. $20 says, salute to the professionals. Hashtag DevPro. DevPro, development professional. Development professionality. Shout out to Wallace in the house. Shout out to John Gilroy. So we are digging into this thing about the professional. We started out with some sentences. We started out with a view, with an understanding, with a notion that being pro means something positive beyond just being good at it. It's an attitude. There's a whole kind of narrative that goes along with it. It's like, go pro. And you think of like Clint Eastwood or something, you know, walking in with that. He's a professional, right? He's going to take care of business. He's no nonsense. There's a whole persona with it, this professional in our head. And we seem to relegate it to one part of our lives. And let's look at what it might be, right? So you mentioned the thing about, there were a couple of things that you said, okay? Now, how about if we start this way? There's something about delusions in people in terms of their skills and capacities and so on and so forth that you cannot do in your professional realm, okay? Generally speaking, okay? I know politicians can be very deluded, and delude people is actually part of their job. That's not the point. But delusions in things that have skin in the game, which we'll address upon later because it has to do with the professional thing as well. Things that have skin in the game, such as plumbing, being an electrician, being a heart surgeon. You can't BS your way that you kind of did the surgery, right? Or, you know, it's like the patient dead or alive. Is the light bulb on or is it off? Does the transformer work or does it not?
Is the pipe broken?
Yeah, like the dentist, haircut, those kinds of things, okay? Now, you can't be delusional about it. The market gives you real-time feedback. Now, are there areas in your life where you would say that you have taken this professional attitude towards holding yourself more accountable, or using, in this case, because the professionalism, what it does is it uses the marketplace as a means of accountability. You are getting remuneration, you're getting paid. This is a cold calculated business here. Okay, it's do you deliver or do you not? And then you go in and you you deliver or not. Now, this speaks of accountability, and accountability is a professional kind of thing, right? So how does one port in that particular thing there, accountability? And yes, say you bring it into your personal relationships, into the life of your children, into planning for your children's, whatever it may be. How do you get accountability and feedback from the marketplace, outside of the marketplace, and still kind of hold your professional dignity or your dignity as a parent, for example, or something like that? How do you make sure that the environment is checking you and keeping you real and honest?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to understand is to you have to understand your consciousness. You have to become a little bit more conscious of everything. So you have to look at it's all part of the presentation. So what I want to talk about, there are two things. You have to understand that there's eccentric value. So, as a professional, let's just take a basic professional, a plumber or a barber. You sit on the chair, he cuts your hair, he gives you a mirror, you say job well done, you give him some money, you might even throw in a tip if he does an extra good job, and you walk away, right? That is so there was an exchange of values there. There was an eccentric exchange, which is here's the money for the job that you did. Now, for you as the person who was serviced by the professional, there's an intrinsic value, something that meant something inside of you. So what we need to understand, it's a form of currency that's internal and external. Your professional life gives you your external currency, and your internal life gives your internal currency. So establishing guidelines, establishing this is the time we're going to go to bed, and explaining to my children that the purpose is so that you can function better the following day. Teaching my children how to eat, and that you're not hungry, you're thirsty. That theory, I think you talked about it on you're not hungry, you're thirsty. Having him drop 12 pounds when the pandemic was getting the best of him, and now to a point where I could be upstairs and someone brings home some fried chicken and he says, do we have something healthier? You know what I mean? So it's looking for that, it's seeking for that internal currency by establishing rules and mindsets and policies and ways to live freely, but your freedom is rewarding. I'll add another one. I remember in the middle of the pandemic, I went and bought a bunch of Lego pieces and Technique car sets. And I was trying to teach my children the importance of sitting down and building something that no one's coming to cheer for you. No one's going to pay you. You've just spent, this Technique vehicle's got almost 2,000 pieces. You've just spent hours and days doing it. No one's going to clap for you. When you get to a point where you can reward yourself from what you've completed and giving yourself kind of like that high five or a pat on the back, it slowly and over time starts becoming more natural to always have a professional mindset that's going to give you the reward, the internal reward or the external reward. So you're always rewarding yourself, whether you're at home or whether you're not at home. And then they start to blur. But like you said, you can't screw up on the barber's head. So when my kids are building a Technique set, it's an opportunity to teach so many things. You're frustrated because you can't get that piece together. Just take a moment and breathe. Take a deep breath and breathe. And look at it from another perspective. And then that reward comes in when they go, oh, that dopamine deposit. Oh, I got it. So when they're used to getting that, then the confidence level goes up. And as you move from location to location, it's a lot easier for you to satisfy your inner peace, your inner reward, because you're so used to doing these things, especially when no one's looking.
That is a very good point that you made there, sir. I like that you took it there. You're talking about, because the question again is, how do you use the marketplace to keep yourself accountable out there in the world of being a barber? Well, you can't stay in business too long if you keep messing up everybody's hair, or dentists messing up your teeth, and so on and so forth. Right. So in your family, and then you talked about being able to set, I'm paraphrasing, games and rules of the game.
Right.
You called it structures, standards, and so on and so forth. And this is a key thing for anyone here in terms of your development of others, but definitely in this context of raising children is an absolute key aspect, especially boys.
Right.
Especially
big
boys.
Time. Especially.
So boys need to know the game that we're playing. What do I mean by that? what is this father-son game, for example? Like, is it just some, and there are many ways to tell them, right? It's equally fine if you're like, okay, we're raised in a, we're is it the Quakers or the guys with the other, whatever. We're in this particular closed society. It's religious. These are the rules, right? Everybody,
Right.
you learn the rules ever since you were a kid, so you know where God is, and then it's father, and then it's mother, and then this, that, da, 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 da. Even if
That's
that
right.
is the game, make that clear.
Right.
Whatever game you're playing, make it clear. Now, what are some of the actual games? Because we live in a technological society, we're materialists and so on and so forth. So we have to just explain things differently. Like, why does father have power, authority? Well, because he has responsibility, right?
Right.
Hey, son, how before you knew how to take your own shower, you didn't have you didn't have any power over how you took it or the warmness of blah blah blah. Like, this kid is like maybe 7, and you remind him when it was 3 or something.
Right.
And in other words, show that the more you knew how to do things for yourself, the more you had responsibility and power over those things.
That's right.
Now you do whatever you want with your toothbrush. I don't have to watch you brush your teeth, or I don't have to do this or do that or do that. Why? Because you can do. So there are these other things you can see around that you're not doing, right?
Right.
Okay, that's dad doing that stuff. Obviously, I come and I pick you up and I do this and I do blah 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 blah. Right? So it makes sense, right? That since I'm doing it, I get to set the rules, or I tell you this is how it works, right? And you're like, okay, yeah. This is not some kind of anecdote for bad behavior or something. I'm not saying, oh, now they're going to become angels. No, but it's that the setting of the rules is absolutely key in
Big
order
time.
to be able to, and I'm trying to go back now to the abstract of just using that as a way to interact with people on. So, and then you talked about payment. Okay?
Right.
You talked
Reward.
about payment, reward. And the thing about the professional is that they get paid. And when you get paid, guess what payment does? A lot of times people think payment, okay, it's counterintuitive, but payment actually removes ego from the table. Now, it does it in a way where it's like being a mercenary is a little bit more clinical, more surgical, more removed of your emotion, right? You're like, I get paid to do this. I suit up to do this. It's almost like a role I'm playing.
Right.
It's like it's not my ego all in there. It's like I'm a professional. I learned this is my professional thing. So in the marketplace, you get paid, you have that, you take that attitude. But to take that attitude with yourself as well, striking deals with yourself, for example.
That's right. That's
like,
right.
I have a side of myself that wants cake. I have a side of myself that wants to be slim, right? I have a side of myself that wants to sleep. I have a side of myself that wants to get paid because I finished the job on time and so on. So rather than think of these things as opposing selves, you're like, hey, cake guy, I see you over there. You're like, okay, so let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. Okay. If you leave me alone for like 3 hours or whatever it may be, right? To finish this thing, you get cake. And right?
Right. That's exactly how it works.
Anything you want to respond to there? I just wanted to kind of put a pin on that. The 2 things that you mentioned there, which is one on the setting these rules, and then the other one is the internal pay. You started out with this whole kind of consciousness thing, which is like you need to observe everything.
Right.
And I don't know if you want to reiterate between these 3, given in light of any comments I've made.
Yeah. Well, the environment is important. It plays a big role. If we're talking about the cake man and the ice cream man and all of those alter egos that we fight with, one of the things that it just hit me very strangely was everything that's in the house is because that's what I bought. So I stopped buying certain things, and that just started the discipline because I realized no one's pulling my arm to buy these sweet drinks or cookies or high sugar, high sodium snacks, right? So it's becoming conscious of the environment. Okay, what am I doing with my time right now? Just looking at the house. If we say let's exercise, is there a place that's designated? Do I have exercises in place that I can show him? What am I eating? Because if I'm eating something, I'm telling him to eat something else. Maybe that's not playing by the rules of the game. So being aware of your environment is the first thing that's going to set the stage. So we have this rule in my house. No one plays video games during the week. We play on weekends. When we watch TV, after we watch TV, we have to go do something physical. So we've come with these little agreements, and it's all from really paying attention to the environment, noticing what's going on, because sometimes we get so caught up in looking into one room or one screen or one problem. And sometimes I want to encourage everyone to walk around where you live, examine the entire environment, and ask yourself, are there triggers that are promoting bad behavior, or are there triggers that are setting the way for good behavior? And having that professional mindset, having that rules and policies and procedure mindset that will end up being fun, so that it never feels that, oh, Gary, I got to do this boring stuff. Like funny story, I have a 4-year-old. He's the youngest of my 3 boys, and he didn't want to exercise, and I'm trying to get him to develop that. So I said, let's play a game. I'm going to chase you to the end of the door. You're going to have to get me. And he's running up, and as he gets closer, I speed up a little bit, and we ended up doing about 12 laps. And he says, I'm tired. I was like, I'll tell you what, I brought a Ritz crackers, which has nothing in it. I'll tell you what, if you could run 2 more times, I'll give you 1 cracker. This kid wanted up running 6 more times just so he could get some more crackers. And the crackers really don't have anything that I'm afraid of, right? So the point is to find ways to turn what we've perceived or engraved in our brain as boring or not fun, and putting a fun spin around it. And that also comes through establishing a higher level of consciousness of your environment. And I think that starts to arrange and set the stage for everything that, a professional would do. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, as a professional, as soon as I get stems from my clients, the first thing I'm doing is I'm putting in a session. I'm labeling, looking for EQ mistakes, looking for, even putting icons, because I don't want to have to read that this is a kick. I just look for a kick drum icon, and that way, reading stops. I could just go with memory. So setting the stage is extremely important to bring that professionalism that we have in the workplace or in the marketplace, and bringing it to where we live.
Again, many things mentioned again. A way in which I would like to perhaps re-enter the conversation from this point here. You mentioned seeing your house and saying, are there things here that perhaps increases the fluidity, the ease of the passing of my day and my time, and me doing the good things that I want to do? Is where I put my gym clothes, for example, helping or hurting my ability to go to the gym, right? Should I perhaps have this kind of system whereby it's just kind of really easy to just push a button and the gym clothes just show up right in front of my face with clean socks every time, Is this, and then, you take it from there. So as relates to being professional, one thing in our professional lives, we tend to have order, right? Order in the environment, and then order also in the 4th dimension, which is time. So you got that things are ordered in such a way that, okay, I can reach for my little pad here. I write this over there. I like to stand up and work. So I always have, even if it's not a little easel or whatever, but I'll have a board. You do that. I can stand and work on a standing desk. I can sit. So this room is like, okay, I can do stuff in this room.
Right.
Now, the whole of your other aspects of your life as well, in terms of where you sleep, whom you're having dinner with and how you have dinner, how you communicate with them, all these things require a certain kind of order. And then there's like you mentioned the internal order thing. Now, one thing I can take out of this whole kind of soup here is starting. There's a saying that says, a task begun is half done. I believe it's Marcus Aurelius, right? Meaning, we know how important starting something is and how hard it is to start it. And we also know how it tends to take a life of its own once you start it.
Correct.
The thing about the professional attitude is there is no question as to you starting, right? So, and it's also about order. Right. You have an ordered place that you go to do the certain task. Even if you're working from home, it's a little corner desk in the kitchen or a separate office or in your garage or wherever. You have a certain time that you go to do that thing. And whether you feel great or inspired, low, high, whatever you may feel that day, you go and you start, right? You're not really necessarily thinking about, oh, am I going to be able to do my best work today? You may not even be thinking that. You're just like, okay, I know I got to get to work today. So I'm going to get there. And when you get there, miracles happen. So how can we more inculcate this aspect of being a professional into other aspects of our lives, right? Because again, you can look at professional life versus regular life, or you could just be like, when it comes to getting things done, the professional side seems to have many, many tools there. So why don't I just blend these things together and just become a professional at life and stop messing around with that work-life balance stuff? But anyways, how do we inculcate this starting mechanism into our lives?
Well, I think you said most of it there. The starting point is really where that's where your half the battle's done. So I think starting for me is understanding why. Someone once says, once you establish the why, everything else falls in place. So I think that we have to set goals for ourselves, and I think that's a key point. We have to set goals and things that we want to accomplish, and that's half the battle. So going back to how do we start? We say, if I were taking that example with my kids, obviously we said, okay, we're going to watch a movie, and after we watch the movie, we move. So we have a list, and we say, okay, these are the movies we're going to watch. Okay. And these, after the movie, this is the exercise that we're going to do. And then let's take a typical day. It's hot. The movie is done. The air conditioner's on. Everyone's is laying on the couch and no one wants to do anything. Well, I have to be the voice of reason and say, okay, guys, we made a deal. A deal's a deal, and everyone's head's heavy. And I just have to be that constant voice of encouragement. And the next thing you know, we're exercising in like an hour, and everyone's like, "Wow, I didn't see the time go by." So that's a situation, obviously, because I have kids, and with my level of consciousness, I could force myself out of that tired zone. So what about a person that's sitting there by themselves? No one's there to do it. That's where you have to establish some internal personal goals for yourself, something that you want to see yourself do, and have a system in place for that to happen. So whether you need to put reminders on your calendar, whether you need I think I've seen one of the videos, you leave your gym clothes out. What I do as soon as I get home from work, I just dress up in my gym clothes. I put on my shorts and my shirt. So there's no excuse. I'm halfway there. So, if you're by yourself, maybe those are some things that you can do. Having some goals, or what I tell people, how do you know how to play the piano so well? I tell them, you want to know my secret? Give 10 minutes every single day, just 10 minutes. Just carve out 10 minutes. Everyone has 10 minutes, and buy yourself a piano. Matter of fact, you can't get a piano. Give me your phone. Do you have the money right now? Let's just buy it right now. And then all you need to do is just play one key for 10 minutes. If you get bored in 2 minutes playing that one key, play another key. Just play one finger. Here's a video that I have, or you could watch, that you can do this. Now, that doesn't always translate to doing, right? But is having as much systems, tools, and everything in place, so that the moment you have 1 ounce of a desire to go ahead and start, now there's no, everything's already set in place. So really, it's putting triggers everywhere, something in your calendar, something on the wall. I had a friend of mine, he wrote, "Humans have done it." He had a motivation, and he printed the word "humans have done it" on his study desk. And every time he would get tired, every time he doesn't feel like studying, he looks at that statement and he gives him another 1 hour of reading. So someone is doing what you're trying to do. Someone's living your dream just because they did it. So you have to find something. Put a screensaver on your phone. And there's a saying, if you do something for 21 days straight, it becomes a habit. And eventually that continuous pounding and pressing and repetition, then it's just like Ike says, it's like the rear axle of a vehicle that's not in motion, but you can spin it in your mind because you're so used to seeing it move. So it's really about building that inner strength of voice that's always ready to talk. I always tell my children, your mind is never tired. It's your body that's tired. So once you can get your mind to agree with what you need to do, then the rest just becomes a matter of time. And it's not going to be automatic. This doesn't happen in one day. I mean, there's a saying out there, professionals spend over 10,000 hours on what they do. That's why they're professionals, right? So, but the way to start it is by making baby steps. It's not going to be tomorrow. You're not going to automatically get up tomorrow and go, well, I'm going to go work out for an hour when I haven't worked out in the last 5 months. It's not going to have 7 minutes, just 7 minutes. And the next day, another 7 minutes. And then maybe next week, you're going to graduate to 15. Who knows? While you're doing 7 minutes, you might do 30, right? The point is to give yourself just a little bit at a time. And eventually your curiosity and your drive that's inside of you somewhere will take over.
I hear 100%. So there is a particular rabbit hole that we as human beings tend to drive ourselves down into. And it has to do with this love question. Okay. And I'm gonna focus it down. Love causes a mess everywhere. But I'm gonna
You had
I'm
to
gonna
go there,
focus.
didn't you?
I'm gonna focus it. Hey, I'm gonna focus it on the area of loving what you do. Okay.
Right.
So there's an attitude of, well, a professional does it for money. I do it for love. The professional attitude, therefore, gets relegated into this kind of it's a cold, sterile place where you do things in an immoral, dispassionate way, and you don't really love what you do. So, anyways, these are all, in my view, just kind of excuses for running yourself into a rabbit hole of chasing dopamine, right? Because you don't know actually how to play the dopamine game because you don't understand that discipline is required, rewarding yourself, all these things which we've said, right? Making deals with yourself, so on and so forth. So you have this idea of loving something that you're doing, and unless you're feeling butterflies in your stomach 24/7, then you know you're not going to do it. And the only thing that can force you to do it is if your paycheck is tied to it. So what is this? So if I could formulate that into some kind of a question, there is an attitude that says the amateur just does it for love. The professional is cold, calculated, dispassionate, doesn't really love what he does. Professionalism in terms of its manifestation in order and so on and so forth. Oh, that's cold and not spontaneous and not fun and so on and so forth. What is that thing? And they sneak in the whole kind of love in there. This is where the love is. Now, I think that a lot of love is in, for example, you could be having fun, a nice dinner with nice wine and so on and so forth, with a lot of love in the room. But almost because of the love in the room, you better be a pro at preparing that lamb roast or whatever it may be. You better be a pro and be a good host and all these other things which take levels of skills, levels of planning, and so on and so forth. So, if you will, this dichotomy between pro and amateur, with love being on the amateur side and all this coldness and BS being on the professional side, what do you have to say about that?
That's an interesting one because I think that most professionals started as amateurs. Most professionals started with the love. When I started making music, I was just crazy about music. I just loved music. And it got to a point where that love never faded away. And over time, I had gained all of the professional tools needed and the experience needed to make money off of it while still loving it. Now, the difference between the amateur and a professional, if you want to make those comparisons, the amateur hasn't set systems in place, hasn't graduated to establishing a set of rules, policies, schedules, expected outcomes. You know what? I'm going to do music for this long, or because I want to do this. You know, sometimes I go on Instagram and I'm watching what they call beat makers these days, and there's this kid just nodding his head and hitting buttons, and he's showing off what he's able to do, and he has a link on there. I sell beats, and he shows videos of him just making beats. I mean, you're watching this kid, you could tell he loves what he's doing. At the same time, he's got links, he's trying to get some money out of it. But there are people out there that make a killing way more than these kids do. They're not on Instagram. They're not out there nodding their head. They're not doing any of that stuff, but they can make what that one kid would make in selling one beat. They would make that a session in one session. They would make what that kid is making 3, 4, 5 months in one session without having any Instagram followers, for example, or don't even know how to use Instagram. So you can call that a culture shift, right? Back when those producers were growing or those beat makers were coming up, there was no Instagram. There was no, so you can call it that. But what you see is that professionals have systems in place. Professionals have time. They have hours that they do it. They have what they do in the studio. They have a workflow. They have a method to their madness that they can follow so they can produce the same results every time. So if I'm like, for example, if I'm mastering an album, one of the first things that I do, I make a master chain and a master session where I can run all the audio files in there so that I can give the same outcome every single time, so that it's not I was in a good mood, so this came out better. It has nothing to, the creativity plays the role of, the creativity is still there, but it plays a role more of being creative to repeat the creative process. You can argue that if you've ever had KFC before, it tastes the same wherever you go, because there's a formula that they apply every time they prepare a meal. So I would say that, to summarize my thoughts in that, is the amateur has no system in place, is just dwelling on the love. And some people can stay in that love zone for a little bit longer, right? They can stay in there for a while. They can stay there for 2, 3, 5, 6 years and never really get a system. And then some, that the light bulb goes off and they go, whoa, hold on a second. You're going to pay me to mix or master a record for you? Okay. And then you start, and then the curiosity takes over. Then you're doing research, and you're contacting, and you might even take a class. You might even go watch some more videos. Then you start getting some processes and systems in place. And that's the difference between a professional and amateur systems. They have procedures, policies, and ways to repeat and give you the same or expected results in every time they do something.
Yep. Systems for continuity. That's
right.
The key there. You put in systems so that you can make things continuous. You can outsource it to the automatic layer of either yourself in terms of habits, or the automatic layer of external setups, tools, organizational, blah, blah, blah. Now, staying on this whole thing about systems and the love thing. So again, professionalism, it's cold, sterile, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. I want to leave that at work. And then there's this amateur love, freedom, expression, existentialism, experience. However, there is a thing, about, so you mentioned love, staying in there for a while.
Right.
You mentioned, or one could even say, hey, marriage versus infatuation or something.
Right.
Or even love versus infatuation, because by the way, anyways, people even argue, like if you want to look at traditional marriage interview, like let's say traditional in terms of the Bible or something.
Right.
People will find that verse where people talk about, man, love. But I don't really think love was much of the
no, not in that era at all.
Yeah, this whole kind of love thing. But anyways, infatuations will not last. Moments of inspiration, for example, don't last, right? You need to set a system to keep it going. Now, in this particular regard, if we come down small again and just talk about the fact that we are trying to institute and inculcate some of the habits in terms of time management, in this case, time management, having systems, order, structure, things that you can repeat when you wake up every time, so on and so forth. I think that it removes, I mentioned before that it removes the ego, but besides the ego, there's certain other dangers involved with that whole love thing about, well, I do what I love, or I want everything to be fun and spontaneous and so on and so forth, is that it actually never works to the end of what you want. Okay.
Right.
You because this is about achieving certain outcomes vis-a-vis tools, skills, and so on and so forth. That's what the word being professional comes into. So in your marriage, for example, in whatever it may be, any kind of human relationship or any kind of endeavor, you're going to need to understand that thing about 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration is true. That
Correct. Right.
1% infatuation, love, 99% just kind of checkbooks, kids, homework, and this and that.
Right.
Or no matter what it is you're doing, you running a business, 99%. Yes, 1% is bam, you got that deal. Oh, woo, I solved that problem. 99% is okay.
Management.
Invoices, purchase order numbers, blah blah blah, taxes, all that stuff, and then the regular day-to-day operation. So I know I've said quite a lot there, but the main dichotomy I'm trying to focus in on here is how really, when you have this professional attitude, a systematic attitude towards things, you could do. It has nothing to do, number one, with the fact that you don't love them. Actually, it is a way. It is the best way of doing the things you love.
Correct.
Because you tend not to smother them, and then you tend to also have a objective attitude towards this thing.
Right.
Where it's not just you're not all in your feelings, all in your ego about something. You take a surgical, clinical approach to it. So again, any reactions to anything I've said there regarding that dichotomy?
Yeah, I think that what everyone listening to this needs to remember is that the love is what brings you back. The love is what brings you back, because when you're a professional, you're managing yourself. At least in most professions, you're managing yourself. You're responsible for your own motivation. You're responsible for your own management and keeping everything intact. So the love is what will bring you back. Now, there will be times when the love is gone, and that's where the system allows the continuity. And then there are times I've had a client where I really didn't feel like working, but the money was good. And so the money triggered the love back and triggered the whole systems and turned all the systems on. So different things start to play different roles. But if the question is how, the how really goes to understanding your why. Like I said earlier, why am I doing this? And asking yourself that question, the why, and it will trigger the love. You brought up the topic of marriage, and that can't even be far from the truth, is that everything else in marriage is just, it's understanding that these are mines, okay? This is how you walk around. This is how you avoid mines. And this is how you plant seeds, and this is how you plant good seeds. So there's a whole strategy and way of dealing with relationships that a lot of it is strategy more than it is. The love is what, like you said, is that moment where, you know, you light the fire, the fireplace, and you drink some wine and you go, oh, this is so awesome. This is wonderful. But the rest of it is like, you know, I got to make sure I can get back to sitting back and having a glass of wine. You know what I mean? So bringing the two together is really remembering your why and finding how you can get the internal reward and the external reward when the external is, when you have the external reward, take it. When the external reward is missing, take the inner reward. And then if the inner reward is missing, then look for the external. So you're constantly looking for both. You know, as a musician, a professional musician, there'll be some days where, you know, I don't have any client work, I don't have anything to do. I'll just get in my studio and turn on some old records that I've done, and I'm smiling for 2-3 hours going, wow, this sounds nice. I'll go on iTunes, I'll look at the record. I start reminding myself that this is what you've done, and that love will hold me for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden I get two work orders. I need the song mixed and mastered, and I'm like, oh, cool. So again, it's really having triggers that put you back in place, because it is in your human nature to what's the word I'm looking for, to get distracted or to be caught up with what's going on, whether it's societal issues or family issues. There are dynamics all around us daily and constantly that are asking for our attention one way or the other, whether we want to or whether we like it or not. So it's finding a way to remind yourself about what it is that you do best. What is it that's special about this? Look at your old work. Look at what you've done before. That's why now you'll see a lot of companies, they thrive on 5-star reviews. Look at the reviews that have been said before. Look at, that's why musicians have plaques on the wall. Look at the plaques. Look at your previous accomplishments. And that gives you some new motivation, because as a professional, you're going to need that a lot, especially from yourself.
A lot of motivation from yourself. Now, Nicer had something there to say, and it seems writ large when it comes to longevity, okay? It is systems, even before Nicer asked the question about someone's longevity being a result of professionalism. It's almost by definition that systems are what keep you in place, because the systems will make sure that you're showing up. And then when you show up and you hit a brick wall, such as I'm not selling this many, or maybe I'll do a twist from, you know, I'm going to knock you out to I need love, you know, and, you know, all that LL Cool J stuff that, you know, we're hating on him for a while there. Well, he was getting paid. And then later it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to go back in the gym. I'm going to get a little swole, start doing club music or whatever it is again. I'm going to try to battle rap. Can I bust? These were all business decisions of changing. You see similar things with Snoop Dogg as well. And it's because you look at these things professionally. It's not a question of, oh, I just love this kind of thing, I'm going to stay true to the end. And it's like, well, when you do it professionally, you find that you might take a little licks along the way. You might deviate to aspects of your profession that you may consider lower level than you may desire. But on the long run, you're going to be able to do it right for the longer period, and also an aggregate of time actually gain the most enjoyment, or shall we say be most true to yourself in terms of your creative endeavor and your creative output, right? You make more of the songs you would like to make than if you just said my first album and that was it, and they made me want to, you know, who knows? You go through the ups and downs, and then you end up making more of the kinds of songs that you wanted to make. But yes, systems and so on and so forth are absolutely key. I don't know if you had anything to say about what Nicer has said down there.
Yeah, she said his LL's longevity is due to professionalism, right? Yes, you can give some of that to professionalism because it's clear that he has a system in place. But in this particular, I think I just gave the example. LL Cool J is fortunate enough to be popular in an era where a lot of people have known him since I've known LL Cool J since I was a teenager, my early teens, and he's doing things that are evolving with us as we grow up. At the time, I was just a little kid, and now that I'm a parent, maybe I'm sure my kids don't know who he is, but he's doing something that people like me, maybe their children are familiar with. I think I seen him one time on Nickelodeon. So he's found a way to evolve and transform himself, and that's something that's important. When I started doing music, I actually started as somebody to just play the piano. And then I loved playing the piano so much, I thought, well, what if I could just, play the bass on the keyboard? What if I could play the drum? Then I started producing. And then I started learning the art of balancing sound. What if I could mix? Oh, and I could mix that too. And now what if I could master? Now all of a sudden, and then I got to a point where what if I can write? What if I could do hooks? What if I could sing? Now, what if I could co-write? Now all of a sudden, what I found out is I love creating. So creativity takes many different forms, and most people get it twisted that it's about being in front of the microphone and singing or rapping. No, creating is even making the album cover. That's part of the creation process. Is another thing that I added to my list. So the point is, as a professional, you have to evolve with the times. No professional, like we talked about the dentist. If we go back 20 years ago, dental work or braces look different. And as a dentist, you have to evolve and you have to grow into some of the new dentures and dentist styles that are out there. Haircuts have taken a different turn, and now you see a lot of dreads and curls. Back then, most folks were comfortable with flat tops or just a flat haircut. So professionals have to constantly evolve and adapt to the new society. And we've seen music, even as a producer, I've seen that. Back when I started making music followed more of a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have trap music that follow more of a gritty 16 count and using lots of repeated hi-hats, and even the style of rapping has changed. So as a professional with systems in place, it'll be easier to adopt new knowledge because you already have systems in place. The same place where you cook maybe a pot of where you grill, some beef. It could be where you grill some fish or it could be a place where you're grilling vegetables if you become a vegetarian. So having that in place allows you to just shift over to a new window of knowledge and professionalism without, starting all over again.
Very good. Very good. So yeah, we're going to continue to drill down into this professional attitude question here, which is the professional attitude and why you should not look at life as I have my professional life and then I have my other life, right? My non-professional life, my life where everything is chaos, my life where I don't have order, where I don't have systems, my life where I don't actually have clear-cut goals or ways of demarcating them or when I cross them, my life where there's no accountability, my life where I don't have any skin in the game. Is that what we're saying?
In other words, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I don't blame anybody because we all kind of got into a certain mode. Not that anybody planned it, but there was a thing back in the day of, just being a farmer. And you're a farmer. You just kind of live, breathe, and do everything the way a farmer does. You wake up and you go to bed the way a farmer does, at the times that a farmer does. You do the chicken and with the eggs early first, blah, blah, blah. And then you go do the hay thing. And there was no kind of my professional life and then my other life. Everything was just kind of one and the same. Same thing with your family life, with your extended family life, with certain other kinds of perhaps non-governmental associations that you may have, communal life, if you will, right? So professional attitude, I think, reduces pride, right? Because here's what tends to happen with people. You want to do a kitchen project, right? Or whatever it may be, some kind of thing because you just want to do something. You want to paint, You want to
Right.
do something, you want to change this, blah, blah, blah. A professional tends to know that things cost at least twice as much and take twice as long as whatever initial estimates you may have.
Of course.
You know, it's,
Yeah,
it's always amazing how you're like, again, it took a lot longer than I thought, you know, or it's a lot, things are never, it's always some little thing.
Right.
Now, the amateur, on the other hand, the person who just does it for love, tends to be more prone to abandoning a project in the middle of it. You
right.
abandon a marriage in the middle of it, abandon a renovation project in the middle of it, abandon you trying to teach your son a particular thing, or you trying to become better in terms of your health, your diet, your workout,
Right.
whatever it may be. A professional attitude is one of, my pride is not tied up with this. I'm going to fall. It's going to suck. I'm not going to want to do it every day, but I wake up, I take my tools, I go there. And this idea of pride and the professional knowing that things are going to be chaos, right? What do you have to say about that? How do we perhaps do more of that, take more of that professional attitude towards things in our life?
Well, I'm glad you brought that, because I was just thinking of something that I may have mentioned this before. The attitude to maintain is I call it PAR. Okay. PAR is that everything in life is a problem. Okay. No matter what it is, if you have to go to work, you have a problem. So you're going to take actions. A. So means you are going to take steps because you're seeking a particular result or resolution, which is the R. So if you look at everything in life, even to watch TV is a PAR. Oh gosh, I want to watch some TV. Problem and actions. Take the remote control, have a seat, tune into where I want to watch, and you've resolved your situation. What if we just took those PAR and applied it to just about everything? You realize that you're guided by the same principles, whether you're choosing to be productive or not. But so why not turn that into something that you want to do? So how do we tackle that attitude? Is to constantly remind yourself that this is a problem and you can PAR it. The problem exists and the actions are within you, and the results are the desired outcomes. It's having established outcomes, having desired outcomes. You know, I'm always amazed by a GPS with how logical it is, right? You put in a starting point, you put in an end point. You can circle around town, stop and get some coffee, get some groceries, pick up your laundry or dry cleaning, and it'll readjust to ultimately get you back to your destination. So, but that very same GPS, if you do not put in an endpoint, in other words, a destination in mind, it is a quiet and useless machine or product, if you will. So I think it's really having an outcome in mind and looking at that outcome and knowing that I just need to take a couple of steps and keeping that in your mind. And and I think you mentioned about scheduling. That's extremely important. You know, I have from every day from 10:30 to about 1 a.m. It's called my time. At that time, my cell phones don't ring. Social media notifications are dead. Emails don't ping. Nothing is going on. That's when I read. That's when I do music. That's when I do everything. And it's to a point where one time I watched a movie until about, I think it was, 11:55. And I sat there and I'm feeling unaccomplished, even though it was a fantastic movie. And I went up to the room and I'm laying in my bed. It's 12:15. And I was like, I can't. I felt guilty. So I came down into the studio. I pulled up some old stuff and I was just kind of retweaking it. And it was about 1:15. And I was like, you know what? I've done something. So there was even a time where I came into the studio. I put on headphones. I pushed play. I fell asleep. I woke up at about 1 o'clock. I was like, hey, at least I listened to a record. I listened to at least a record. So it's getting this groove and mentality of being a problem solver in everything that you're doing in your day-to-day life. You're solving problems.
100%. And you were given a system, in the middle of giving a system or several systems, or emphasizing the importance of systems. Wallace over here asked, what would be the first recommended system that someone looking to become more professional should try? One thing that you mentioned right now is that whole scheduling thing. And I think that the way you, or is that the most important? In other words, is a schedule more of the important thing? Is it your whole system of observation? Because that's how you started. So you were like, consciousness was the first and the last, the alpha and the omega.
Right.
Everything else is just in between. So is there a system for like where would you say someone starts? You have a system, first system.
The first system, I think, is you have to first have a why. Why? You know, and I gave an example. Why did you put an address in the GPS? Because we're trying to go somewhere, right? That's your why. And if you do not have a why, then it's the rest of it is a lot harder to establish. I if I take, I'll go back to the example that I gave. Why do I need to go into my studio and do? I have usually an hour of reading and an hour of looking at records, and sometimes another hour I'll dedicate to my web profession. Why? That's because I need to touch my systems every day so that I don't lose my motivation, so that I don't forget my why. So I'll give you an example. I randomly went into the studio when I normally don't go in. I think it was about 2:00 in the afternoon. I was working from home, and I walked in here, and I turned on my system, and I noticed I had seen an email from my plugin company about a new EQ that they were giving me, and I just didn't pay attention. So I'd opened up a project that I had before because something popped up that your systems had been updated, and I noticed that they were completely new GUI, a graphic user interface for my system, and I was panicking because I'm sitting there going, okay, where's this, where's that? And next thing you know, what I'm in the room for like 2.5 hours, and I was so glad because the next day I had a client that called me and said, hey, I need an emergency session, and I need this and this and that. And I just tapped myself like, I'm so glad I did that, because then I didn't feel uncomfortable. I was ready, I was prepared. So when the interface came about, I'm just comfortably working with it. So as Ike mentioned, is getting rid of that ego. So there wasn't any, it must be the computer that's messed up. No, the computer's not messed up. You don't know what you're doing, right? So in that moment that I was able to get in there, just being conscious that maybe I should just go touch it for a little bit, it gave me an opportunity to get familiar with the new graphic interface of my plugin. So it's having a why. Why are you working out? Why? If your why is not defined, we talked about starting a business, one of our casts in the past. It's similar to a mission statement. Why? Think about your GPS. Why did I put an address in here? Because I'm trying to get somewhere. So why am I trying to become a professional? Because I'm trying to, it goes back to PAR: problem, actions, and results. So if you want to become a professional boxer, that's your why. Then that means that I have to make a schedule so I can work on my jabs on my left or work on the jabs on my right. Why? Because I want to become a professional boxer. And that allows you to create time. Why do I want to then work on my uppercuts, right? Because I got to get my motion. Why do I want to work on my my cardio? Because I have to have longevity on the court. So if you keep reminding yourself of your whys, it'll become automation after a while. It just becomes automatic. It's just normal. I remember I was traveling, I had a long flight. It was a 16-hour flight. I remember being worried that I needed to do some music. So I took a light version of my DAW, which is, really just an acronym for digital audio workstation. I put it on my iPad, and I'm in the plane, and I'm just doing it. And I'm, just keeping my mind fresh. So you got to just keep that wheel's turning, but that really comes down to your why. So that would be the first, the most effective why. Someone put that in there. So I think Ike, you want to tackle that? There's a new question on here.
Yeah, there's a new question on there. I placed that, and the why being the most important system. And you mentioned the thing about the being in an airplane. So I usually carry this book around with me, but I remember now writing songs. Writing things is notoriously there are many tales about it. There's things about writer's block. There's things about it being a terrible thing altogether, lonely existence, blah blah blah, difficult. But I was in a plane too once in recent international travel, where it was just the right flight, the right time, the right setting, and everything. And these days I don't really drink as much, or like, save it for certain kind of occasions or whatever, just because it's mainly a diet thing, really, at the end of the day. But I had some champagne, I had enough energy, and I had some champagne, comfortable. I was like, so I busted out my, my little thing, and I wrote a whole song that I was supposed to write, melody, the whole thing, and words, everything. So that is actually a cool story. Now, so on this systems thing, I would, since you already gave the why system, I would say create a system for observation. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, if you need to improve your credit score, your ability to budget, and your weight, a system for observation is, well, get
an
a
app.
an app that watches your credit score, get a scale, and get a spreadsheet where you say, how much money comes in, what are my expenses, and how does it go out? Now, or the system could just be like, how much comes in, and how, like, some kind of very simple. In other words, I'm not saying do anything. I didn't say go to the gym. I didn't say run. I didn't say do anything about your credit in terms of, maybe you start with a secured credit card, and then you do this, and then you go to the non-secured, and then you pay off this debt, or you write off that one, you wait for 7 years on the other. I didn't say any of that. I just said this system of looking will absolutely transform you.
A dashboard.
Why? Exactly. Having a dashboard changes the way your reward systems work, because it wants to see this number in the scale go down. It wants to see the number in the credit score go up.
That's right.
And it's it that I'm talking about. Don't worry, you're not conscious of it. You don't have to worry about it. Okay. You're not controlling the dopamine, whatever. But the thing is, it's going to start instantiating,
Right.
okay, systems whereby it's gonna give you rewards when it sees that the thing goes down. And then you're gonna be like, oh, things that or just maybe you don't know what makes it go down. Like, whatever I did today to make this particular number go down, that go up, let me go ahead and do more of that.
Right.
And then you're going to learn more about your credit, obviously, because once you've established that ground floor, just observe, you're going to be like, let me see what this website says. Oh, it says I should keep my credit utilization under 25%. Okay, what does that mean? That means reduce how much I use. If I have $100 worth of credit, I should only always use it up to $25 and then pay it up.
Right.
Okay. Or I could just increase my credit limit. You go, if I get another credit card, get up to 500, and then maintain that. If I can maintain 25% of 500, okay, and this and that and the other. But a simple system whereby you just collect all these gauges for measuring what it is you want to improve is key for bringing that consciousness and that awareness about. And then you engage. The elephant and the rider is a analogy for the unconscious and the conscious mind. You want to engage the elephant, because you just tell the elephant, hey, elephant, because you want to go to the river, you say, elephant, that way, however you train the elephant. And then the elephant takes you to the river, right? The elephant is very powerful. You cannot, that's why you can train it, but it's in control. Is that the reason of that whole analogy, that you can train your body, your habits, your dopaminergic rewards, and so on and so forth. But really, it really is running the show. Okay, don't think you're gonna alpha your way through or overpower it. That's why the training is very important. So I would say that a system of observations would be the first system that I would say someone should institute. And then he's saying, okay, the motivation that you're talking about, the why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intrinsic or extrinsic. And it's like, well, the first thing that tends to come to mind when somebody says something like this, I'm like, well, that heavily depends on your personality, right?
Right.
Or what is your understanding of the question, and what are the first responses you would have to such a question?
My first response would be, it depends. It really depends. There are some people that are professionals because their lives depend on it. They have to take care of their 3, 4, 5 kids or debt or so that drives a long-term mindset. But whatever every professional does, there is a why. And the why is, I got to take care of my kids. And that why is it sets the tone. And what Ike rightfully said, your dashboard, your looking and monitoring becomes a key role, because that gives you an opportunity to continue. So, okay, like when I had my son recently lose 12 pounds, I told him, I said, right now, if you can lose He's close. If you could lose 20 pounds, I will take you to the Nike store and you could pick any shoe that you want. So every day he wakes up in the morning, goes, I'm getting closer. So I gave him a why. The why is, listen, you dropped that 20 pounds, but what I was indirectly trying to do for my why is I wanted a healthier child. I wanted a more confident child. And that has been birthed through my single why. All these other whys have been created. This is why he will not eat pizza. This is why he'll prefer to eat a salad with boiled eggs as opposed to a bowl of spaghetti. So his why, so one why can give birth to 10 other whys. But like what Ike said, just get the one why first. Why did I buy a scale? Because I want to track my weight. That's going to give birth to everything else. Why am I checking FICO? Then when you get that app, you realize that it gives you more information. It tells you names that have been created with your social security number. It tells you addresses that have been linked to you. And all of a sudden, why is, your why you have that app could be to make sure you're monitoring your identity. As someone that myself, I've suffered identity theft. You realize that those credit apps do a lot more than just give you your credit score. So one why can give birth to 10 other whys, but have one. The one will start to open up the other one. Some people try to get 10 whys. Oh, I had a friend of mine. She wanted to exercise. She's I got to get gym clothes. She buys a bunch of gym clothes. She buys a yoga mat and she gets some Zumba videos. And then she gets, these gym stuff. And then she needs to get a gym bra and all these other things, but she didn't exercise because the why you buying this clothes wasn't properly established. They were more of excuses. So you got to be careful, because amidst that, your mind could do a great job at making excuses. So it's got to be that blank piece of paper why mentality. One thing. So I'm going to get a scale so I can see how much I weigh every day, can give birth to it. You got to get your butt in the gym. As opposed to, I'm going to go get gym clothes. I'm going to get weights. Oh, crap. They're out of the weights that I want. I guess they're a back order. I'm going to wait 2 weeks. That could just go on, and you get stuck in that like the hamster in a wheel, right?
That is a key little thing you mentioned there about you. She was trying to play the trick of, I'm going to go to the gym because I have gym clothes. You should have been going to the gym and then be like, I got to get gym clothes because of the gym. And this is something that is I like to say about business all the time, that I made a stream called Business Structure is Overrated, right? The whole basic idea being that get a customer, go do something. That is the main thing. Right. You don't need an LLC in order to cut somebody's grass or fix someone's computer. You don't need an LLC in order to be paid for any kind of endeavor, right? It's not so, but people do the equivalent of what you mentioned. They're not getting, it's not gym clothes this time. They're getting an LLC and they're getting a particular kind of tax account. They're getting a website. IN number. Let me go open a business bank account and let me do all these things on LegalZoom and so on and so forth. They put out all this money without getting a customer first. And then the customer keeps you accountable. Right. And which harkens back to that whole thing again about both keeping yourself accountable, keeping others accountable with, having rules of the game and so on and so forth. We talked about rewards. Money makes people do things. You mentioned that earlier that you didn't want to do something, but the client was paying, right? Or something. Right. So using rewards for yourself as well, whereby you understand that it is, it's like, oh no, rewards and capitalism, it's all a bad thing. It's like, look, I don't care what your political leanings are, okay? But dopamine rewards are not a capitalistic system. It's not like your biology is practicing capitalism or whatever. It's like rewards work, incentives work.
They do.
Treat yourself as an economic system, and go out there in the marketplace and get judged. And again, so I reiterate this point. What we're doing here is we're talking about professionalism, what exactly it is. And why it is that in a particular segment of our lives, being our non-professional life, we forget all the best practices when it comes to skills, tools, and outcomes. So let me go back to another one again, which is the fact that it takes twice as long to do something, okay? And the fact that in a professional tends to play for the long haul, right? You have a career that you're going after. You have a kind of an improvement is expected where you start something. It's not just so, oh, I am I'm this level of engineer at this point in time. I'm going to forever remain an intern. The employee doesn't expect you to stay there. The marketplace doesn't expect you to stay there. If you stay that way, the marketplace will shift away the means and methods by which your particular clients do their things such that they need you will go away. It'll get outsourced to an app or to AI or to some other person who does things better, right? So being in a situation in your life with everything in your life where you have that attitude of humility, where you know it's going to be a grind, you know it's going to suck, but you schedule it and have systems anyways. And I know that we've been talking around this for a number of times, but with the particular view now of longevity, which is like, okay, I know you mentioned systems and longevity, but you have this point of view where it's going to suck. It's going to be horrible.
Right.
Yeah, my career, like, yeah, things, my work, my profession, like it's going to be mainly 99% perspiration. Right. So speak on this, how we can get longevity, how we can play the marathon game, how we can have staying power by simply taking the etiquette of professionalism and spread it into the rest of our life and becoming professionals at life, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I think we can say that systems work when you have a system in place. What you in my professional life, I've been a professional since we're in 2021. I could comfortably say for the last 12, 13 years of my life, I've been a professional. What you learn and what I've learned, your understanding of systems, your understanding of your why, your understanding of self-management and self-motivation play an important role in longevity and your ability to shift when needed. So let's take the pandemic that we're slowly coming out of. How do professionals like studios? How did we do it? How did we continue recording artists? How did we continue mixing projects? How did we continue enrolling students during the pandemic? How did we continue having sessions or events that required people being face to face? What a lot of us did is we evolved. Now, some businesses weren't able to survive the pandemic. Unfortunately, a lot of them closed, and some were able to stay in the game. And if you just think of your favorite restaurant, they all adapted this tent in the backyard and the front yard of their business, and everyone started depending on mobile orders, and DoorDash became a big thing. So in a way, your longevity is heavily dependent on your ability to examine yourself often. Okay. So that's why going back to your dashboard and looking at how things are going. So let me go back to an example I gave before I dabble on that topic. During the pandemic, I succeeded in convincing two of my artists to buy a microphone and to get a computer and software where they can record their vocals. And they did. And using Zoom, I helped them set it up. And I said, just go in your closet. No one listens to a song and knows that it was sang in a closet or in the studio. We just enjoy the music. And I walked them through how to send me the stems. So we were still able to produce 2 records during the pandemic. And I was able to do that with 2 clients. Now, did I have the opportunity to do that with more clients? Yes. Not everyone is willing to learn or deal with being uncomfortable learning something new, right? So being able to adapt and so having that system, so being able to say what I do here on my end is identifying what the tempo of the record is and passing that system on to my client. Set your tempo to 92. That way I know it's 92 in my studio. This is what you need to do. Sing and put your point on 0. So when you're sending your stems, they're going from 0. Make sure it goes to the end of the record. So when you have a system in place, you're able to transform that system, because you realize when you talk to every professional that's making money off of professionalism, that is always the same thing. Number one, you have customers. Customers have expectations, and you have due dates and deliveries that you have to make. You have to overcome objectives, because your client might say, I don't like the way this song sounds. It's all the same thing. So it's knowing that these systems will allow you to easily jump into a new and unfamiliar territory, and you can survive or reestablish yourself. Like I think someone asked earlier, LL Cool J has been able to do that. So the topic on longevity is really having a system in place and constantly monitoring what is changing in your profession. I'll
Mm.
give you one. I'll give you one final example. When I graduated my bachelor's, it was in computer information systems in 2004. And at the time, the programming language that I was trained in was COBOL, the COBOL. You could mention that to the last 5 years. No one even knows what that is. But what I did, not that I came out of college wanting to program computers. What I did was to familiarize myself with some of the newer programming languages that were up and coming at the time: Visual C, C++, JavaScript, and all the other stuff that's going on. So don't park your car or park your mindset like BlackBerry did, where they failed to evolve and now they're forgotten. At one point, they were the dominant smartphone makers in the industry. So if you look at what companies like Samsung or Apple are doing, they're constantly evolving and adjusting in the marketplace. And Apple, talk about systems, Apple has arguably one of the best systems in place. That's why they can sell you the same phone every year and you'll pay new dollars for it, because their systems are so effective that they'll give you the new iOS with the new camera. And what they don't tell you is you're still taking the pictures of your same friends. You're still installing the same apps that you had on your previous phone, and you're still browsing the websites you've been browsing before. But they sell you this idea that now you can take better pictures, right? Because the system works and they evolve with the customer. So part of, longevity is your ability to have a system in place and evolve as the times change.
100%, 100%. And as we kind of move towards the winding down of this conversation, which I would like to continue in a different, from a different phase here. If anyone has a question, they could quickly hop in. The link has been in the chat for some time. However, the idea here again is this: if the professional mode, as would seem to be the case, given our common speech and so on and so forth, and now we look at going pro and don't be an amateur. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be a professional soon. Be professional about this. If the professional mode of acquiring or getting outcomes, the desired outcomes that you have, the professional mode of skill, tools, and so on and so forth, when you say something is professional grade, it's going to last long, it's going to do what it's supposed to do, there's no BS about it, and so on and so forth. Well, then how come we have this thing called our professional life, and then we have the thing called the rest of our life? Is the rest of our life not worthy of looking at the goals in a systematic way? Is the rest of our lives not worthy of approaching your skills and the nature of the craft and so on and so forth, such that there is accountability, such that there is a game and rules to the game, so on and so on and so forth? And a high level of skill, knowledge, and performance makes you non-delusional in terms of your professional life.
That's right.
Because there's expected growth in your professional life. But when you go outside your professional life and in your regular life, where again, the outcomes are perhaps more consequential, the outcomes for your health, your well-being, your family, your kids, your wife, whatever it may be, these quote unquote personal outcomes are actually more consequential. They can be more devastating or uplifting to you, right? So why don't we do that? So and then we mentioned a few things like responsibility and commitment. There's obviously the time thing, right?
Right.
And now I want to mention one thing, and it kind of has to do with this time. I think we kind of laid out the map here of this kind of professional thing, and I would like to have a follow-up conversation to pick up on some more specifics and drill down to some more specifics. But this thing of work-life balance, right? Which is another theme that you could use to dress up this conversation, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's this kind of idea. The work-life balance, people get away with it because they think they're talking about time. They're like, oh, I do 9 to 5 from 9 to 5, and then I need some other time to do some other stuff. But really is the fact that they're not inculcating a professional attitude towards the rest of their life. They look at the professional side as, not having the passion and the love and so on and so forth. They want to get all involved with their egos. Perhaps they want to delude themselves a little bit to thinking that things are going better in their lives in a way which, if they took a professional view of it, they'll be like, no, this is an utter failure. Okay, with the system I'm running here in my life, it's an utter failure. Right. So work-life balance. What do you have to say about this thing, which I think is a travesty? But anyways, go ahead.
I think I want to make sure I could take the small approach to this, right? That is something that I figured out. I figured out how to balance it all. Let's take a whole day. In a whole day, You have enough time to do everything that you want to do. Let me say that again. You have enough time to do everything that you want to do. But what you have to understand is that whatever it is that you are doing, do it in totality. Give everything to it. The mistake that we make, we do things lightly. We do it, let me say half-assed. So what that does, it creates a guilt system in your brain, a judgment that, oh, I didn't do this too long. And then you start to punish yourself. And then that punishment leads into being a lesser version of yourself while you're trying to give time to the other thing. And that motion just continues. And the next day, the guilt continues. So I'll give you an example, and parents will understand this. If you have your child, the moment you hear parents say this, the moment I decide to do something important, that's when my child needs me. No, that's because you have decided to dedicate to something else. One thing I've learned, dedicate to your child first. Like, I've been here. I have 3 boys. They're noisy. None of them have come this way because prior to this cast, I dedicated like 3 hours of my time and we did all these wonderful things. So they have been satisfied with time that I've given them. So I says, I'm going to be on a cast. I don't want anyone knocking on my door, calling my name. And it's been successful. It's been how long we've been here. They haven't bothered me. So give everything to what you're doing. Be in the moment, be present in everything that you're doing. And you know what you're going to discover is that you will become more efficient because you're giving everything to it. So if you say, I'm going to spend 5 hours, like one thing that I figured out in my professional life, I can go in my office and what anyone would do in 9 to 5, I can do that in 4 hours and I'm done. So I give myself 9 to 5 as a schedule. By 2 o'clock, I can leave the office. I've had lunch and everything that I set out to do that day is done. I get home and I give everything to it. And now it's kind of like, an exercise drill that a buddy of mine, my friend and a friend of mine had, where it's 10 minutes. And that 10-minute exercise, you've done what someone would be in the gym doing for 45 minutes to an hour. So the point is, give everything to what you're doing and you will manage your time better. You would have a lot more extra time. Learn also to multitask. So one of my hobbies, this is a lot of people think it's really surprising. I like to build. I like building sets. I like building car sets, and something that it's a hobby that I picked up with my kids. And I will have my audio reading going on. As the audio reading is going on, I'm building my kits. So I get to read and build at the same time. So being able to parallel your work and parallel what you're doing in time, you become more productive and so the moment you are going to sleep, your mind shuts down because you have no judges. No judges are awake. People go to sleep with judges. They go to sleep with portals open in their mind. So they're judging themselves. Oh man, I forgot to write this email. I forgot to do this. Oh, I got to get the bed. And they're just there awake. But if you give totality to everything that you're doing, when you go to bed, your mind just says, we did it. Good night. And we wake up the next morning, we have that same attitude. And the next thing you know it, you're having way more productive hours versus doing more during the day and still going to bed unaccomplished.
100%. I like that. I like that you're talking about squeezing the juice out of every time.
That's right.
Because I said, this whole work-life balance thing is just an excuse for you to not use some of the tenets of professionalism in the rest of your life. And then you think that it's just, I just needed to get away from my professional life so I can spend this time, quote unquote, time in my other things. But you're not giving the time to these kids that you claim you want to go spend time with.
That's right.
You're not actually dedicating time as you did in that when you were working on that spreadsheet at work or whatever, right?
Right.
So the work-life balance thing is, I think you should go full bore with high focus on skills and mastery and, focus on those desired outcomes in every aspect. And, even taking away that whole love aspect again, and perhaps more so for men, because we'll be more comfortable kind of doing that. We're trying to run away from it every opportunity we get. But I think that's all well said. So we have over here, I believe, in the house for the first time, Blind Guy, his wife, their life, How y'all doing?
All right. Good evening. Well, good evening, good night, whatever time it is for you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
How you
We're
doing?
doing, yeah, hello, we're doing great. Just listening in, it's a pleasure. I saw the link there, and then Ike was like, "Hey, where is everybody?" So we just came in just so we can say we were in the room with you guys.
Oh, we appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Excellent, excellent. But any thoughts so far about this whole idea of, well, why do we have a professional life, and then when we have an unprofessional life, a chaotic life, I may assume, a life where nothing goes well, a life where things are not measured, there's no accountability. Is that what we mean? So how come we just don't? What are your thoughts regarding this particular thesis here, I guess?
Yeah, I think my thoughts are a lot different than what we've been hearing tonight from our guest. He's done a great job tonight of really putting it into where we are in this world. Like, hey, you have to be a professional over here, so figure it out, and relax when you have the time to relax. I guess my thinking is that it's one of those things where I feel like, well, we're all in this space where we're trying to fit in to what is quote unquote professional. What is professional, what is not. So it's one of those things where, my husband and I, we do it all the time as far as you get in, you fit in, you play the role, because, there are societal norms. There
Right.
are things that make other people feel comfortable. And there are those are things that you prefer as well. So, hey, let's go ahead and get in and fit in. And then, of course, so for me, it just depends on the arena, where you are, how your professionalism plays out. But I absolutely agree with everything that you were just saying, especially the part about spending time with the kids, because my husband is that guy, he's that guy that manages the kids and figures out, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to do it. And he's the authoritarian. Is that the right word, Corey?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is.
Which one's the bad one, authoritative or authoritarian? Because I forget from my college days.
I just call it. I just call it with my wife. We call it the good cop, bad cop. I don't mind being the bad cop, but
Yeah.
what people don't understand is the bad cop is one that gets the good, so they can show it to the good cop. You see how it works, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
And I wanted to. You said something very, and I wanted to just talk on that before, so it doesn't slip my mind. You talked about, we want to, the societal norms and things that are expected of us, and then we could just relax. Well, I've learned that you can relax like a professional. You know what I mean? And that's what we're talking about here is maximizing every opportunity to be all into it. It's just giving it your totality. And like sometimes I remember my wife and I, we went on a vacation, and the whole time she's on her phone looking at what we could do and this, and then we got to go here. And I'm thinking, this isn't really relaxing. We're sitting here stressing about the next thing. To me, relaxing means that your butt's on the bed and you have absolutely nothing to do and nowhere to go, and your cell phone is turned off. If anything, maybe the TV might be turned off. Maybe you're just looking at the sun and listening to the waves, right? So I think we sometimes look at, oh, I could take a sigh of relief, but what if we could take a sigh of relief in the proper way? Relaxing to the core. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see me, Ike, but I'm pressing rewind. So I can say all that again. As we say, I'm using my mo control.
Mo control. Yeah, that's right.
The mo control.
No, I several things that were said there. I want to kind of reiterate. Well, first of all, yeah, it's that authoritarian, I believe, is the one, is the dictator. Authoritative just means having authority. But anyways, the aspect of, because this harkens on or dovetails with a question that was asked earlier about Wallace. We talked about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So external normative norms, things that are out there. They could be rules, they could be societal structures, whatever it may be. Expectations are by this age, you do this, blah, blah, blah. Extrinsic motivations for doing things. Part of what I said about, the system to institute, I find is one to measure things. Just try to start noticing things more, right? And I think that this is a pathway because I didn't want to go straight to my answer to everything, which my answer to everything is meditation, by the way. That's my cheat, like meditation.
Good
Not
answer.
going straight to the, well, thank you. Not going straight to meditation. It's like, okay, how do you observe reality? How do you get kind of and then tap into that unconscious, which then will make you want to lose the weight because you're always watching your weight every day. And all you're doing is watching your weight. You're the CEO of this company, and the CEO, which is just your thin veneer of consciousness, says, watch the weight, and you let the rest of the company kind of go about making its changes and doing its thing. However, when it comes to really intrinsic motivations as to why you should, whether relax at its highest or spend quality time with your loved ones at its highest level, take things seriously, it really has to do with what I call, let me just use the phrase I always use, master your subjective consciousness, okay? If you go into yourself and you're able to observe your motivations as they manifest themselves in terms of drives, feelings in the body, image in the head, talk in the head, all that kind of stuff, then you can really, or I cannot obviously chart the course of your motivations and actions, but I say that you have the best chance of staying true to whatever your particular individual, far away from societal norms, course of action should be.
Exactly.
Because it's just kind of simple. Like the further you come closer and closer in here and try to stay further out there, and you may see programs in here that came from out there, but hopefully you are wise enough to recognize the programs from the truth. I don't know if there's any wanted to respond to that in any way.
I want to respond. I just want to say I might as well just leave, because whatever you guys say, Corey is of the same mind. So this is really like, because exactly what you just said is pretty much his mantra. Like, yeah, I know what I want. Intrinsically, I've already determined what's going to happen, out there. And so, of course, I've got to satisfy all of these things that other people want, but I really don't. That's his thinking. He's like, what I really will do is, and he tells me this was really going to happen. And, so that's why I said, I might as well just go, because I'm over here, the wife, like I'm the one at the hotel, scrolling, getting the list of things to do. And he's the one that's like, man, I hope she doesn't say, it's time to go, because, I'm here looking at the extrinsic forces. He's like, look, we already know what we want. We already know what we need. Right. And we've done the work ahead of time. So there's no need to necessarily go overboard now,
Yeah, and she's being a little rough on herself too, because I had to learn some things from her, because once we had children, I didn't see it when we were childless. We were married, we would travel, because our business calls for us to travel a lot. And so whenever we were doing tours and performances and educational conferences, I was like, I'm here for work. And then she's like, well, we can blend work and pleasure together, make this a vacation, a working vacation. I'm like, no, they got to be separate. You can't have work and vacation. There's no such thing. Right. I never got it. And but once we had the children, then we started figuring out, okay, we have one of those, what's the word? We have the benefit of having a profession that allows us to be flexible enough that we can take our children with us. We can take a road grandma or a road nanny with us. And then when our shows are over, and our performances, our conference, seminars, whatever we're doing, when they're over, we can take the children and then have plenty of fun for the rest. Because really, I was thinking about it in terms of, we're only on stage or in front of that audience for about 2 hours. Right. The rest of the day is ours. So I had to learn that, from her, you can dial both of them in, but at the same time, like she's saying, okay, every minute of the day ain't got to be packed with, watching videos or going on a tour or going to this place or that place and that third. We can just sit back and just chill a little bit. So, I think we kind of, learned a little bit from each other. I think I've probably done most of the learning by force, but I think we both learned a little bit from each other.
Ike has just gotten married, so he's going to learn by force, maybe.
Yeah, he will. He'll learn.
Hey, Ike, I got one for you.
Let me tell you, this is a good life. This is a good life. Don't listen to Ike.
It is. Now, I'm not sure if everyone saw that question. It says it's pretty interesting to hear men on the panel and they all have the same sort of mind frame. And I wonder, what is it about? Are they conspiring against women? I'll speak for myself. I think that what I said was just as an example, but everything about who I am today is as a result of everything that my wife pushes my way. So it's a constant balancing act of accepting and rejecting. And what I've learned in how many years now, 14 years of marriage, is that sometimes just listen, sometimes just play along. You'll be all right. Because the difference between the role of a husband versus the role of a man is our job is to introduce logic to the situation, and that's it. Anything other than that, I'll yield. And once I introduce my logic, I leave. Maybe you should put your phone down. Let's watch a movie. No, I'm going to keep looking for a hotel. I'm just going to sit there and you continue. When you're done, I'll be here. That's the best way to put it. So we love our wives, so we're not conspiring against them.
Yes.
And obviously, Snuggles is messing with you. Let me give you a shout out, Snuggles, for your $5 super chat, talking about why you were not notified of this. I don't know. Maybe it was YouTube or so on and so forth. I have no idea. Maybe you were in someone else's panel doing. Oh, I think I'm hearing a little echo. Oh, right now. Okay, so let's do a little last words here. If we'll give the guest the last word, but let me just say something in terms of a summary, and then I'll ask that, if you have anything to say, our other guest, and then we'll give our is it the distinguished guest, the esteemed guest, the head of the board of the panel, whatever. Anyways, I'm just kidding. So recall, okay, there are words there are phrases such as go pro, be a professional. Be a pro about this. And there's something that we associate with. On the one hand, it's a good thing. It's efficient. It gets things done. On the other hand, maybe it's surgical and clinical and too clean, and it's motivated by money and such other dirty things. Perhaps there's not love there, and so on and so forth. But life, the more you go about living it, tends to be about desired outcomes. And then there are better and worse ways of getting those outcomes. Therefore, how about one side of ourselves, our professional selves, look at the other side and say, hey, how can we teach each other something here? How can I go about doing things in my family life the same way I do in my professional life, where whenever it's the time, I go and do that. I go spend the time with the kids, and I actually seriously do it. Seriously do it the same way I seriously open that spreadsheet, the same way I actually seriously read that email.
That's right.
With your full presence and so on and so forth. And then you only have one mode, which is just on, as opposed to work on and semi-work on, vacation on. In other words, having to manage these different selves that you have, it's actually more work than actually just training yourself to be oneself.
That's right.
Now, all this sounds rather, I know that this is a lot of work and it sounds lofty and so on and so forth, and perhaps, theoretical, but that is the idea. Why try to manage and juggle all these different things when you could just have one same mode that has all the virtues required for meeting desired outcomes? And, but I will go ahead and any words that you want to say, and then to our guest to wrap it up.
Sure. I'll be very brief because we just popped in. We know that you were finishing up, and I definitely agree with being your one self, like finding a perfect balance so that you can be your best self at all times. I definitely try to be my best self at all times. I'm myself at home, so that's a different self. So before you start to say it, Corey tells on me all the time. He's like, you aren't going to say a word.
Plead the fifth.
you hear that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So that being said, you're absolutely right, though. It's not lofty. It's not just rhetoric. It's not theoretical. It's just the truth. If you can, find that sweet spot so that no matter where you are, at work, at play, in any situation, you can be that best self. It always comes out, it always comes across, and it's so natural. It's so easy to do. So that way, when you need to code switch or when you need to, change it up for whatever time, you can, if anything, level up, because you'll never have to really stray too far from that. But I don't know, anything from you, Corey?
Yeah, and I agree with you saying as far as like turning it on and being on, at all times, whether you're working or in your personal life. And I just use my kids as an example. I've tried to be, okay, because I don't look at the computer screen. I listen to my screen reader software, read what's on the screen to me. So I have my earphone in my ear.
Because Corey can't see, like he is blind.
Yeah, I'm blind. So I'll be typing and I've done the yeah, while the kids are telling me something that's, important to them, but I don't think it's important to me because I'm like reading that email or whatever I'm doing, like, yeah. And finally, I think it was she was about 5 years old. My oldest daughter said, Dad, you're not interested in this. You're not even paying attention. I said, oh. So at that point in time, I realized there were just certain times of the day that I'm just going to unplug that email and eat that computer and just give them the attention they need, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes. Then they just feel like rock stars after that. And I actually tell them, like, okay, you got give me 5 minutes. I'll take the 5 minutes. Okay, now I'm gonna spend the next 30 minutes with you, and then after that, I gotta go back to work. Okay, and then they get their full 30 minutes, and they're like, wow, I just had the best time ever. So you're right. You have to, kind of be on in all aspects. So you can't be half working, half parenting at the same time because kids are ultimate bull detectives and they'll get you for that. And that's in anything you do, So yeah, just be on all the time.
100%. And go check out their channel. I caught Corey's name. I don't believe I got your name.
Yeah, Laquita. Yeah, I'm always the one chatting, Laquita, because I'm the one always in the chat.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I can't use the chat feature, so she's always the one chatting.
Yeah, the way his computer talks and his phone talks, it doesn't work as well. So I'm always the one chatting. So yep, I'm on Snuggle side. We're together.
100%. Well,
I'll check out your channel for sure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yes.
And feel free to drop the link in the chat. Blind guy, his wife, their life. Check out the channel. And thanks for sharing your thoughts. And coming in the panel when it was requested. Making hey, we're in here too. We showed up for the party. We didn't want to leave you guys alone here, dancing alone on the dance floor. So thank you very much. And yes, Mr. Aitois.
Yes.
Last words from you, sir.
Well, I first of all, I think that the Corey really said something key there. Echoed my similar thoughts. Is to give totality, and what I'll just summarize by saying, once you can invest your time, because here's the thing, professionalism requires you to be very attentive. Because all the little details can make all the difference in the world. You've heard the joke about the guy with the ship that, the ship had all these issues, or the story or the metaphor, if you will. And he called an engineer to come fix the ship. And he comes in and he gives them a bill of $10,000. And the invoice read something like, cost of my tool was $10. Cost of labor was $9,990, and this is why so much, because I know where to hit, right? So your professional life calls for you to know where to hit, and as you take that professionalism from work into your personal life, you'll start to see that you know where to hit when you don't feel like doing it, when you don't feel like working out, when you don't feel like checking or fixing your credit. You'll know where to go to get that, and bridging the two. And one of the things that I've found out, the moment you give it all, you actually have more room to be lazy, because you're lazy in the right element. You're being creative in the space of totality. So you maximize creativity, you maximize your fun time, you maximize your exercises. I have this rule when I go to the gym. The first 30 minutes is just for me to get some repetitions on. The next 30 minutes is really where working out is. And anything after 30 minutes, that's where you're gaining some real muscle. And I realized that I do that when I'm there for 30 minutes. I already know the judge is awake, that that these are the rules that you set. So this 30 minutes didn't mean anything. And it just so happens that I had an important phone call while I was in gym that I had to take. And then I left and went home. And as soon as I got home, I said hi to the family, gave them my usual 15 minutes. How was your day? Very dedicated listening. And I jump into the garage. And my wife was like, I thought you already worked out. Nah, I didn't. And gave another 45 minutes. So bringing these values and systems in your workplace, following them in your home, your life would be a lot more fulfilling, and the rewards will be nonstop. That dopamine deposit will happen all day, because that institution of the body, as Ike rightfully said, has his own set of rules that they're in control. They have the power. You're a guest by your own habits and your own attitudes and systems that they would reward you, because there will come that moment where you go in the mirror, you see that extra muscle, you stand on that scale, you see the 10 pounds missing. You go to, I remember going somewhere and, if you have good credit, I'm like, no. I know I have good credit, right? So you walk with that confidence. And once you have that confidence in your life, everything around you in your society, in your world, becomes a lot easier for you to tackle.
Well, couldn't have said it better. Things will go well all through the day. You will get dopaminergic fits of bliss through your neurons, says he. Right. That's exactly what he said. All right. So Snuggles, shout out Miriam Jones, shout out Wallace, shout out Nicer, always holding it down. As usual, let's get a little vote as to how we will go ahead and end this. Snuggles, do you want to hear run or battle within? 1 for battle within and 2 for run. So as that vote comes in, okay, let me go ahead and let you know that perhaps tomorrow or perhaps on Saturday, we will be having our guest, Jay Ibrahim, coming in to continue the conversation that we had last time. The conversation that we had last time had to do with the good life. The good life. How do we arrange our personal habits, virtues, so on and so forth, just that they facilitate the good life? How does one look at metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, society, politics, such that they facilitate the good life? In other words, the good life tends to be a common end in many, many layers of abstraction, from the individual all the way to the biggest picture. We talked about things as the importance of play. In this importance of play, we forget this. And well, perhaps in our next conversation, I want to kind of harken upon this point, because there's something that people forget. Like, why did you hop over that anthill? Why did you take this stick and break it? Why did you take these rocks and start hitting them against each other as a kid? Like, well, it was for play. Why are you going to Mars? It's exactly the same thing.
It's the same thing.
So a lot of people forget that the human endeavor is an endeavor of play and aesthetics. In other words, you don't just eat potatoes. You make them in a certain way. You put them in certain kinds of bowls. You put them around the table. You put a flower in the center. People sit around and they try to have nice conversations, and and then you eat the potatoes. Okay, so it's like these things are play. They are superfluous. In other words, they're purely non-functional. Right? We have the functional things. You need air, water, food, some functional things, reproduction, so on and so forth. But everything else, about 99% of everything else we do is play. And then you have industries around play. Gold industry, because why? Because I like the way that metal looks and I want to make buttons and bowls out of it, right? I want to go to Mars. Why? Because it's there. And then there's a whole industry, space industry, people studying things, coming up with scientific. Why? Because we're playing. And I see the votes have come in and the votes say 2. So I believe 2 was the song Run. And we shall be stepping out. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall see you again on the Saturday or Friday, talking to Jay Ibrahim about some more philosophical topics, continuing the conversation that we had last time. Peace out to everyone. Shout out to Blind Guy, his wife, their life. Check out their channel. And also, follow Aitwa and New Game Productions in Instagram. Check out American Heritage University. Also, great online university. Go out there, see what services or ways in which you can promote them. Give back, ladies and gentlemen. So we are out. Peace.
In the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Conditions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners. Go. Run, 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 make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we can't forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we can't forget it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. Run for the hills, let the will lead the mind. For living is the thrill with the doubt left behind. Amidst all the wicked, there is beauty to behold. Be fearless and intrepid from the depths of our soul. The hands of the steady cleave the rose from the thorn. The sweat of the weary brings the glow to the dawn. The motion of the wheel brings the light to the mind. Sing be a line, it's divine. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling on your daughters and your sons, they come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, come, make we get it. Calling on your daughters and your sons, they come forget it. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters and your sons, we can't forget it. Run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling out your daughters.